How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. It is May 2020, and these are the stocks that I'm looking at buying over the next month. Some of them I've already put orders on, and some of them are just stocks that I already have big stakes in that I want to add to. But I do want to preface this with the fact that indexes are still down just a small amount compared to what they were at before all of this virus stuff happened. I think people are still paying a very significant amount for stocks and stock market indexes right now. And we are going to see a slump in economic earnings and in revenue over the next few months, if not few years. So I do think that it might be a somewhat expensive time to buy, and I could imagine a time when the stock market would drop off again after more earnings reports come out negative. But I think that a large majority of people will invest just through their 401ks and through normal investing no matter what. So even if we get bad numbers, there will still be people investing a large amount into the market. So I am a big proponent of index funds. I think the index funds are great, but in times like these where people are irrationally pulling money and putting money into stocks, I think that you can probably take advantage, or if you are interested in stocks, you can take advantage of some of the pricing. Usually I just prefer index funds, but after I saw the market go down, I think some of these companies that are going down 80% are gonna go back up. So I wanted to invest in them. So that's just the preface. I have 7 different stocks that I'm looking into buying more of throughout the next month. And we'll start with one of the biggest ones, which is Facebook. They're my number 1 position in my Roth IRA right now. And they own the 2 largest social media platforms in Facebook and Instagram. They just came out with the earnings report this last week. After their earnings report came out, their stock went up 10% after the market hours because it was so good. They have one of the best balance sheets in the world with a ton of cash sitting around. They are growing their monthly active users, and they have been able to do that even with already having billions on billions of active users. They've been able to grow, and they're really growing their revenue and their net income like a growth stock. You can see that in 2016, let's just look at Q1, they made about $5 billion in revenue. Then 1 year later, they increased that by 60% up to about $8 billion. Then they increased that again about 50% to $12 billion. Then they increased that by 25% again to 15. Then they increased that another year about 15 to 20%. So I can see a world where they just keep on growing. There have been decreases in the amount of people that want to run advertisements just because this is a tough time for a lot of businesses. But these are the companies that can take advantage, because when you think about what they're going to cut newspaper and print and different forms of TV ads. But Facebook advertising is still awfully cheap, and you have more and more people going on Facebook. So I imagine that they will continue to grow and continue to increase income. The next stock that I want to buy is VNQ, which is the Vanguard Real Estate REIT Index. So it has 189 different holdings, and I really want to get into this more because I don't have much invested in the real estate space compared to my general portfolio. Of course, a lot of the big companies own real estate too, but I want to invest in these because they have really good returns in general. And a lot of the REITs right now, so the real estate investment trusts, are beaten down still because of everything that's going on right now. So they pay a 4.3% dividend right now. It was up to about 5.6%. The stock price was only $56. Now it's about 75 or so. So if it hits 5% again, I'll probably buy a good amount. I just invested another $150 in them, and that order will go through tomorrow. So I'm excited to increase my stake a little bit there. The next stock is IIPR, which is Innovative Industrial Properties. I made a video just a few days ago, and I'll link it here if you want to see the 2 stocks that I bought in my stimulus portfolio. So I made a Robinhood account and used the stimulus money to buy IIPR and the next stock that I'll talk about. But they are a real estate investment trust that's in the marijuana space. They will buy the buildings that companies use to grow in and then they'll lease it back to them using a triple net lease. So it's a very long lease, about 10 to 20 years. So they get almost a guaranteed business through them, and they can inject a lot of cash into these companies. So I go into more detail in the video that I just showed, but when you think about the companies that are having a really hard time right now, there are a ton of them. And for marijuana companies, it's really difficult because they have a really hard time getting funding from banks, and they weren't included in the virus aid package. So in the CARES Act, they weren't able to get any money. There's a bill that's trying to go through right now to change that. But in the short term, I think that IIPR can take advantage by helping these companies by buying their buildings from them. They've done 2 acquisitions recently, and they've been able to grow their dividend a really large amount over the last few years. They pay 5.3%, and just a year ago they paid half of the dividend that they pay now. So if they keep growing, I'm going to make a lot of money on their dividends. The next stock I want to buy is QCOM. So it's Qualcomm. The ticker symbol is QCOM. They are a 5G stock, so they make the chips that go in 5G phones. I also talked about them in my last video that I talked about just a second ago. They are the future because those 5G phones are 100 times faster than 4G phones, which is what we're used to now. For example, you can load a 2-hour video or download a 2-hour video in 3.6 seconds using 5G. So I think after we get used to that, everything else is off the table. People won't want to buy 4G anymore, and they are a large company in that space. If you haven't heard, they actually got into a little scuffle with Apple. Apple thought that they were having to buy too much and pay too much money to Qualcomm because they had some intellectual property that they kind of had a monopoly on. So they required Apple to pay an amount to use that. Apple sued Qualcomm, and they switched over to Intel chips in the meantime. And don't quote me on this, but this is essentially what happened, was that they didn't like the chips and they realized they really needed Qualcomm to move forward, so they dropped the suits and Qualcomm ended up getting money from it also. Qualcomm had countersued, and then they got money from Apple and got Apple's business again. So they are a major player in this space. If you can make Apple bow down to you, that's a good sign. The next stock I want to invest in is Disney. So they have huge growth potential because they just started their streaming platform, and they already have about 30% of the users that Netflix has. And Netflix is huge, very popular. People pay a lot for Netflix. Everyone goes crazy for Netflix. They have a PE ratio of about 84. So for every $84 you invest, they make $1 in earnings, compared to Disney, which has a PE ratio of just about 17. So you invest $17 and you get $1 back. So that is a large difference between the two. And Disney's content is so much cheaper because they already make the content and then they just put it on their platform. It's really family friendly and just went out to Europe, so we haven't even really been able to see how much business they do in Europe. So I think if Disney Plus can expand to just even half the size of Netflix, it's going to be a huge amount of money that I'm going to get from them. They still are down about 30% from their highs, and that's mostly because their parks have not been able to be open. But I think that once everything opens up again, people are going to go back to Disney. It might be a little bit slower, but I imagine that they'll keep going back, and that will just be a cornerstone that we still have here in America where people want to go there. The next stock I want to buy is one that I've wanted to buy for a while, but I just couldn't see the earnings. I really have wanted to invest in them for a while, and that's Tesla. So they had a great earnings report. I say great, they were profitable again for the last quarter, which is better than people thought. It's the third quarter in a row that they've been profitable. So they were positive in net income for the third quarter. Now, they also had a bunch of other good news that came out of this earnings report, and their stock went up like crazy. And if you didn't know, Tesla doesn't just make cars. They have significant business in other lines of work too. Tesla makes solar roofs, which are actually really well made. They look really good, and now they're able to expand. So I think that Tesla branding will help them also. So if they can make 1,000 roofs a week, that's a very significant amount. They have multiple factories, so they could make those at each of the factories. I think that that's going to be a larger and larger part of their business. They also are building bigger factories, so they have these gigafactories right now. They're talking about expanding the size to make them terafactories. That's what they're going to call them. So that's going to be cool because they'll be able to scale a lot better, make a lot more cars. That's really their issue right now, is they can't make enough cars. They also are into batteries, and that's going to be probably the largest part of their business 50 years down the line, is their battery technology. So they are a lot better than a lot of other batteries. They've been able to invest in some other companies and buy their intellectual property, so that's good. They also are able to run software updates and increase the range on cars without you having to upgrade or bring your car in. They pretty much just send a software update. Your car updates when you're not driving it, and then they're able to add like 30 or 40 miles onto your charge. So you can go from 350-mile range to 390, and they don't even have to do anything besides send it out. So that is really cool. They're still over 100 miles better than their competition in drive range. So they still have a huge stranglehold on the electric vehicle market. And I just need the stock to drop. So I've wanted to invest in them for a long time, but their earnings just haven't been there. But I really want to invest in them. I think they're going to be huge and be one of the largest companies in the world 5 or 10 years from now. So if they drop low enough, probably to 350 or 400, I will take a serious look at buying some of them. And the last stock that I'm looking at is actually Delta Airlines. So if you haven't heard, Warren Buffett just sold out of all his airline stocks. They just told the shareholders on Saturday that they sold out their 4 major positions in the airlines, and that's because Warren Buffett basically said they expected a certain amount of earnings, and with everything that's going on right now, they're not going to be able to hit those earnings. They also have to take out debt, so not only are they making less, but they're also paying more on their debt. And if you know my portfolio, I do have a small percentage of money in Delta Airlines. I think it's just maybe 2% of my portfolio or less, and they've been my worst holding performance-wise. But I'm interested in any stock if it drops low enough. If it becomes irrationally low, I will invest in it. So with Warren Buffett pulling out about 8 to 10% of the stock because he owned 8 to 10% of a lot of these major airlines, it will drop the price a good amount. And then also just with everyone hearing that, I think everyone's going to try to pull out real quick. So if I can buy when the stock gets cut in half or a fourth or something like that, I'll definitely take a look at doing that. So those are the major stocks that I'm looking to buy. Those are the 7 stocks I'm looking to buy. Let me know what you guys are looking to buy, if you feel really good about any of these stocks, or if there's something that you want to invest in and it just hasn't gotten low enough. I think there's a good chance that the stock market will go down soon, so it'll be a good buying opportunity. So I appreciate it, guys. Please like the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.